Hello, my name is Tim Ravndal. I'm with Redoubt News, and I'm up here at the White Hope mine with a couple of people that have been in the scenes here with dealing with the Forest Service and the federal government and fighting for their rights. Next to me here is Phil Napo. He's with the White Hope mine here, and next to him is our good friend Joe Robertson, who has been battling the fight here for several years now. And we're just here to give everybody an update on what's going on with this battle for the rights of the people. And these two gentlemen will kind of give us an update and probably maybe enlighten some folks on what's really going on, because a lot of this stuff is being ignored by the mainstream media, and those elected officials that are supposed to be doing their jobs are absolutely out to lunch. So with that, again, Phil has been trying his best to follow the process in order to continue working the mining operation here, and he's been meeting the brick wall. So with that, just a little quick deal here. Here's where we're looking at a problem. The Forest Service demands that if the miners submit a plan of operations, and Phil has submitted plans of operations over the years, and recently has put his plan into the Forest Service to do some work here, and the problem is the Forest Service has not responded. So Phil, would you like to let the people know, kind of just summarize what you've been going through here at the White Hope mine? And then you got another project also that's on the copper project, which is just totally out of context for common sense and the process that the people have to work with. Bill?
Thank you very much. The Forest Service right now is wanting these plans of operation. My opinion on this is they have unqualified personnel in the Forest Service. They don't know what they're talking about. They won't even go by their own regulations, let alone the mining laws. The Forest Service, not only are they unqualified, but they like to threaten people. And they've done that several times to us. 3 years ago, we brought the Oak Keepers in here to help us because of the threats to us and to our equipment and our buildings. Since then, we've submitted several plans of operation to our lawyers on our own. Not only do they usually go out of non-compliance, but they won't approve any of them.
One of the things that we found is by submitting a plan, you've fulfilled your requirements under the regulations, which is, again, they're questionable whether they're legal. But when the Forest Service fails to respond, that's in all intent purposes, by default, they lose that right to have that control. But the system is controlling that system, so we're losing that opportunity. Is that right, Phil?
That's exactly right. They need to go by at least their own regulations and the mining laws. And they think they're beyond being touched. They think they're untouchable, that they don't do nothing wrong. And as far as I'm concerned, right now they are breaking what President Trump just initiated back in December of 2017, looking for all these minerals for national defense, and the Forest Service don't even get that right. They're standing in the miners' ways. If this country gets into serious scrap, the Forest Service is a domestic enemy to this country and to the country's defense.
Here's one of the things that I noticed in looking through your permitting process here, Phil, is prior to initiating the environmental analysis, which is known as the NEPA process, the National Environmental Policy Act requires projects on public lands, again, not owned by the Forest Service, but managed by the Forest Service, to go through this process. But even before you can even start down that road, there's just a list that's unlimited of the other administrative hurdles that have got to go through. Mine Safety Act, the Department of Environmental Safety, the Lewis and Clark County, the Department of Natural Resources, SME qualifications and exemptions, and the Conservation District, and the list goes on. So when we look at our original laws affording the right to go mine and to explore and develop minerals for the benefit of this country, we find this hurdle after hurdle after hurdle. Do you have those same things happening here on the White Hope as well as over in the Copper Creek?
Yes, all those things are happening, but as far as the way I understand about NEPA, it don't even pretend to small miners. That has to do with a major government undertaking where you're accepting government money and you're disturbing such big areas like coal strip or things like that, not little miners.
So that's where the small miner exemption comes in, which is a statute that provides for that exemption under those national rules for the major disturbances. Although, you know, we're trying to make sure that we've learned from our past experiences and do things right. The burdensome analysis that comes with this new program is just putting our mining heritage and our ability to develop resources out of business. And it just continues. Bill has been threatened with having his property removed from this site here that's been here for at least a century before the Forest Service, but yet they're still claiming jurisdiction. Let them know what they're telling you that you have to do, Phil, and then we'll see exactly what we can do to help you.
Well, not only are they saying we need these NEPA studies, they're just saying that there's water pollution going on, and what we do is we take water samples, we turn it over to independent laboratories, and our water is pure where you can just drink it coming right out of our mines. The Forest Service is putting these restrictions on these roads that were put in years and years ago, before 1976, and then under RS 2477, they have no rights to these roads, but they're putting claims on all these roads, and they can't do that either. But nobody wants to sit there and tell them that they're breaking the laws. We've turned to the local law enforcement, we've turned to senators, we turned to congressmen. We gone way into the debt for lawyers to help us out with this, and all they do is keep dragging it out, trying to break the small miners and the prospectors. The Forest Service, this is my opinion, are full of nothing but a bunch of environmentalists. And to me, that's a conflict of interest. They're supposed to be here for the country and to help with jobs and so people can make a living. I have to agree with some things that they do. As far as years and years ago, there was a lot of damage done to these hills. A lot of things were done wrong. But now we got all these regulations, all these inspections, and things aren't being done like it was years ago. And as far as I'm concerned, if you're complying with all this and trying to do what our president is asking us to do, to find these metals, to make us independent from, I call it our enemies, China and Russia, and the Forest Service and the BLM is stopping this, it needs to be brought to a halt immediately.
One of the things that that's been bothering me about your case here, Phil, is I've understood that you have absolutely felt threatened by the officials of the Forest Service and the BLM and these agencies, and you've asked for actual help from Sheriff Leo Dutton of Lewis and Clark County to help you make sure that your and Georgia's safety was established first. That was back in a couple of years ago. It started, and the sheriff kind of stood by on the sidelines and just watched and gave political doublespeak to it until Oath Keepers came in and put a stop to basically an invasion of your privacy and your private property. And so, am I right on that you guys have been asking for help from our local elected sheriff in Lewis and Clark County, and has been just pretty much been given hollow promises?
Well, some of that is true. It's more than just Leo Dutton we've been asking for help. We've been asking from Daines' office. We asked for help from Tester's office. We asked help from somebody that used to be in that position to help us, which was Denny Reberg, and nobody's doing nothing. I asked for a congressional investigation on the Forest Service. If a congressional investigation would have happened, it would have put a stop to the Forest Service running rampant and making their own regulations up to suit them, not what really is going on in this world and what works.
So right now it appears, and I think Joe can probably attest to this, that there's only one person in the capacity to do anything that's fighting this, and that's President Trump. And I think that sends a strong message to those other elected officials that are out there purporting to defend the Constitution and the people's rights. We need to make this clear that we're not going to stand for it anymore. We need to get the people involved in this, and we need to stand up and take a stand against this insanity. I'd just like to give a couple examples here of what Phil is going through, and then I'd like to move over to Joe and have him tell his story. Recently, Phil put in a plan of operations back in May, okay? Under the law, the Forest Service has 30 days to respond to these plans of operations. Phil has been wanting to do some drilling, to do some testing, to do some exploration work, to do some maintenance work on his mining properties here. And the Forest Service has responded to his initial plan of operations, and they're saying it's deficient because it doesn't identify whether it's a load or an exploration or a development. They say it's a new plan. They say that the dates are for total completion are not on the plan. The designation of a company to do the drilling doesn't give a name of an accountable person. And it goes on and it says, what about the travel plan? How many of us across America are seeing our public lands locked up and access denied? Here's another example. They're using the travel plan to say that Phil doesn't have the authority to even access his mining claims. And so the list goes on. How many drill sites, how deep, what kind of equipment are they going to use? Well, come on. How many times can we honestly say that the Forest Service has been in a situation to permit drilling across this country? And now they're saying they don't know what equipment's involved? It's insane, isn't it, Phil?
Yes, it is. And what we're planning on doing is in such small scale, and it's all under exploration. It shouldn't take a lot to get this accomplished. And they're making, I call it a mountain out of a molehill.
So this comes back to the small miner exemption, is that correct?
That's right.
Where these guys are exceeding their authority under the small SME law, and in fact expanding upon the absolute requirements of NEPA. So we need to make sure that we let the people know that that's what's going on. Joe, you know, we've all heard his story. He unfortunately had to go to jail for a year and a half because he put a shovel worth of dirt in a spring. And the United States government came in and prosecuted. I have said before, and Joe has agreed, that had this ever been done with right, the local government officials should have took care of this in the beginning. The local sheriff of Jefferson County failed miserably. His name is Craig Doolittle. And he's absolutely out to lunch on his constitutional duties that he swore an oath to do by allowing for different things happening with Joe's, not only his private property rights, but his his patented and unpatented mining property that he has absolute rights under the statutes to use and to enjoy. And the problem is Joe continues to have the Forest Service, BLM, local government come in and keep making demands. It's almost like double, triple jeopardy. This whole thing just never goes away, and they keep coming back wanting more and more. Bill and Joe both are fixing that. Joe, you want to kind of give us an update on where things are at with your case?
Just for a little bit of history, I did 7 years in the service, combat vet, and then I got out. I worked for the Forest Service for a few years, but I didn't have enough money. They couldn't give me enough money just part-time, so I had to quit and went to work for Anaconda Arco for 20 years in the Berkeley pit, and then that shut down, so I went to work up in Alaska, up in the Brooks Range, underground, in the mill. Then I worked for the Golden Sunlight in Whitehall, and we had a ranch right below that on the Jefferson River. And so I certainly know about mining. And then my wife bought a wildland firefighting truck. We worked for the Forest Service for 10 years as contractors. And we had a bit of a problem. Almost every fire we were on, they didn't fight the fires aggressively. DNRC, initial response, they were serious about putting fires out. As soon as the Forest Service come on, all they want to do is stay out of the office. So we wrote letters to their bosses here in Montana, to the bosses in Washington, D.C., and then they came after us.
Because you were challenging the system of standing by and let it burn policy?
Yeah, they just didn't want to protect the public. And fires, when they go across the country, they're not particular. They'll burn up the whole family, their homes, and just like the Hammonds, they were setting a backfire to protect their property, they had to go to prison. But we've worked on fires where the Forest Service are out there. First red flag day, the wind was up. Just north of Helena, they set a fire and almost burned out our friend's ranch, Rick Grady. But that's okay. But the Hammonds, thank God for our chief, he finally gave them a pardon. And I want to thank him for that. Because here they are, hard-working ranchers, and our Forest Service and our government puts them in prison for setting a backfire to protect their property and their very lives. So, yeah, I built 310 permitted ponds on my private property, on a piece of property that I've owned for years, and we do have another piece of property. They want to shut down our right-of-way across that unpatented mining claim that we've had, and we've been working for 40 years. They want to shut down the only roads to our other property, and it's surrounded by private property. It doesn't have any public access. And yet they refuse POO plans so we can even repair the roads to drive across them safely.
By refusing those plans, Joe, did they refuse them by saying, no, you can't do it, or did they refuse it by just failure to respond?
No response.
See, that's what we're facing.
Yeah.
These guys do this administrative process and eliminate and wear the people down trying to do the right thing. And that's the message we're trying to send here. Due process is being denied these gentlemen, and they're trying to comply. And I think that's really the strong message that we're trying to send across America, is due process is being denied by actors that are thinking they're above the law and acting outside of the law, and elected officials are not doing their duty.
Our last POO plan that my wife put in while I was in prison in Colorado for putting a fire suppression pond on our private property, they won't even accept that. We got an attorney, and they told him that they're not interested in that, our most recent POO plan of operation. And I need that so we can have safe access to our property. And they're denying us safe ingress, egress for ourselves and for our neighbors.
One of the things that we continue to find here in Montana, and Phil, I'm gonna come back to you for a second. Mr. Stansberry, who is our district ranger here on the Lewis and Clark forest, and he's the one that has the line authority to make decisions using common sense. He's got that ability. Joe's district ranger in his district in Jefferson County has the same line authority, and these people are either denied that authority by higher officials within the Forest Service, or they are the ones that are thinking they're above the law. One or the other, or possibly both. Does that kind of sum up what we're facing here? And then you go to the next level, which would be the forest supervisor, which would be the ultimate line authority to make decisions. And one of the things that just blows my mind away in Joe's case is they are all upset about 16 foot of a pole barn that's on the unpatented claim. When it was built, the lines were not defined, and it's been there for years. And now that all this has come up, Joe has been told that he's got to remove that. And they're gonna, I'll have Joe tell you some more about that, but they have absolutely refused to work with Joe.
They've canceled my wife's wildland firefighting contract in retaliation for our complaining because the Forest Service wasn't doing their job. And that barn is where we keep our fire truck, our hoses, our fittings and everything. Thank God we have our fire truck so we can protect our community, because we're almost 10 miles from Basin and they're not going to be able to come up there and protect us. And we live in a forest enclosed beetle kill forest. The Forest Service won't let us even clear the dead trees over 10 feet from our roads. So we got no fire breaks.
And Phil, he's facing the same situation. He's got dead beetle kill timber completely surrounding him. And he's the sardine in the can, if you will, if a fire ever starts here. And there's no way the Forest Service is ever going to come up here. In fact, I think they've told you that if a fire ever starts up here, you're on your own.
Yes, I've heard that from the Sheriff's Department.
Is that sad or what, folks?
It's a threat of your life. That's your very life, a threat.
So public safety does not matter to these folks when they're after taking the minor and the private property in holdings out of the system.
Yep, and it's a shame what they are doing with a little bit of authority and overstepping their bounds and the people's rights. They don't seem to care about the Constitution in any way, shape, or form. To me, it's a shame. And when you put people in as rangers that came in from BLM law enforcement and the SWAT team, and you make them rangers, there's something wrong with that scenario too.